It's Monday, August 11th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, wildfire coverage. You will hear about the 2025 NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund. You'll hear from folks impacted, and we are asking you, how have you been impacted by this summer's wildfires? So that question, how have you been impacted by this summer's wildfires? The lines are open, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, The Signal at cbc.ca for emails. Folks, we had planned a different show for today. Coming in on Friday, I mentioned, right? Monday, Canada Game show, salute to volunteers. Saturday happened with the province's briefing. Yesterday, I was at home thinking, we're going to change. So what we're going to do is, and we have changed, that show on volunteers and the Canada Games, we're going to do it Wednesday. All those great volunteers are lined up. We're going to hear about them. And from them, you're going to meet some great athletes as well. That'll be Wednesday this week. Today, like I said, we're looking at wildfires and impacts. And over the weekend, that bit that stood out to me, I saw this post on LinkedIn, because, that's how I spent my weekends lately. 2025 NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund was what it said. So I got in touch with some of the folks connected to it. So Colin Corcoran is here, CEO, Community Sector Council NL. Colin, welcome back to the show. I do notice you're, and for Radioland folks, because you wear a few hats, right? And this is, you're wearing some Canada Games stuff, and you were helping me find some folks for today, which is now Wednesday.
Absolutely. I'm fresh from the Volunteer Center and checking in with all the amazing volunteers that you're going to hear from on Wednesday. And yes, one of the other hats outside of a few others, but very proud to be working for all of our volunteers, 5,000 strong, as the Volunteer Services Lead and Chair of Volunteer Services Committee.
All right, well, welcome back. Rob Nolan is back as well, CEO, Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. Rob, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, so who wants to start? Let's the conversation for and the details on the 2025 NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund. What is it? And we get why it is, but let's get some details on it.
Absolutely. So as all good things and initiatives that happen here in Newfoundland and Labrador, it all comes down to a couple people having a conversation and saying, let's do it. Yeah. And so it started out as a conversation recognizing the need that once a disaster happens, and we've seen flooding, we've seen now forest fires and others, it's the recognition that what happens afterwards? Right. How do you recover? How do you rebuild? And so once the smoke clears on this one, and once the heroic acts of our amazing volunteer firefighters and first responders and communities, once we're out of the emergency, how do we take stock of everything that's around us in our communities, and how do we rebuild? So as partners, we identified that funding for recovery is so critically important to get our municipalities, our community organizations, and the critical infrastructure and things that our volunteer firefighters need to prepare for, hopefully not in the near future by any measure, but prepare for the next time. We're focusing on recovering and rebuilding in an accountable and transparent way.
And I'm looking at the partners here. Community Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador, the Community Sector Council, yourself, Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, and the United Way, Newfoundland and Labrador. So all four of those together. The website I'm looking at, that's got all the information, wildfirenl.ca. Nicole Daw, Executive Director, Community Foundation NL, sent a note around fundraising already and the numbers. So there was the North Shores Fires Recovery Fund, formerly Adams Cove Fire Recovery Fund. That 280 donors raised $45,000 and change. And that fund is to support the town of Small Point, Broad Cove, Blackhead, Adams Cove with volunteer firefighter capacity and equipment with the North Shore Volunteer Fire Department. The North Shore Volunteer Fire Department serves communities along the north shore of Conception Bay from Small Point to Burton Point. So there's that's already in existence. And then NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund, launched like this week, like yesterday, the day before, like it's brand new.
It's brand new, and it launched. We kind of soft launched it over socials between our organizations. As you can imagine, we moved really quickly on this one. So by Friday, it was up and live. It's stewarded by the community foundations of Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's meant to be that catch-all. So what we've done with this fund in particular, we've asked people if they're interested in generally donating to recovery efforts throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. That's the fund that you can use. So in other areas where there has been some fires, or if there's some fires over the next, hopefully not over the next while, that fund is there. We actually partnered with the community foundations of Newfoundland and Labrador and the community prior to, and I think we'll hear from Curtis later on, to start that fund. I think it's probably a month or so back, and started raising funds even back as far as there. So the whole purpose of Wildfire NL is to take these funds and put them into the public sphere. So if you're interested in general donations to all the affected areas throughout the province, including that area, but we've also included that one there in case you want to donate to a particular community or a particular cause or organization. So there's a couple in there as well.
Yeah, Adam, I think Colin hits the nail on its head.
Yeah.
This is really about recovery, and this is where our organizations, the 4 organizations, but specifically CSC and MNL, play the deepest role, I think. One is in planning and being proactive. So before these sorts of emergencies happen, we help our members with emergency management planning, putting a climate lens on those things, making sure communities are prepared. But then once these emergencies do happen, these crises happen, how do we help communities recover from them? So we're certainly playing a support role throughout this emergency, but of course that's largely coordinated by the provincial government. So we're here to support during these times, but preventative and proactive, and in recovery is where we can play the deepest role.
And that recovery thing, just last week we did a show on preparing for, living through and living after wildfires, and the mayor of Jasper was on. And one of the things that so Jasper, a big chunk of the town a year ago, they've lost it to wildfires. And one of the things that kind of stayed with me, so this, almost a week later, he mentioned, because I asked about what's it like walking around your town now, given this, the recovery push, and he talked about some foundations being poured, and I was like, okay, foundations, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's a year later, foundations being poured. So. And also from my time of living in Japan, in around disaster zones in the north there, around Fukushima, and completely different scenario, but folks were out for a long, long time. And so there's a lot of conversations that need to happen around disasters recovery, funds, what the future looks like, which is why I'm so glad you've both joined me here today. One other bit too, another guest from last week, Annabella Bonata, Managing Director, Climate Science Intact Center on Climate Adaptation. Annabella put up a post that I saw just over the weekend, and she said, Canada's 2025 wildfire season has already burned 72,000 square kilometers and filled communities with smoke, affecting millions across the country. It is now one of the 10 worst seasons on record since 1972. And she's been in a lot of media. Like I said, she was on this show last week. She spoke to the Canadian press and said, I stressed that we cannot treat these events as anomalies alongside reducing emissions. Communities must plan for wildfire resilience by integrating fire breaks, establishing evacuation routes, and conducting annual emergency exercises. And I think this fits in, obviously, when we talk about recovery and we look to the future of what we need to be thinking about. So, Rob, for you as MNL, what types of conversations are you going to be having with members across Newfoundland and Labrador around this type of a thing? Because we've got impacted areas right now in this province, and then there's tomorrow and next week and next summer and the summer after.
So I think the message for communities that are not currently affected by fires is to prepare. If you're not currently affected by fire, your community could be next. anywhere in this province. I think everywhere in the province is at risk right now. We're between high and extreme levels of fire risk across the province. So the right now is we're working with towns, and we have been working with towns. We continue to work with towns on their emergency management plans, putting a climate change lens, as I mentioned, on that. So coastal erosion is part of that, and the usual conversations that we have in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador around climate change. But, we're seeing that the province right now is a tinderbox. You walk across grass and it's crispy. And I had a colleague say the other day that he's from Ontario. They're used to that in Ontario. We're used to quite wet conditions in Newfoundland and Labrador, and it requires a mindset shift for all residents and all leaders across the province that we need to be more cautious. From M&L's perspective, we've recently started the Climate Ready NL program, and part of that is helping towns to open up their emergency management plans and update it with a climate lens. We're working with Newfoundland and Labrador Association for Fire Services on that, as well as a couple of other organizations. And you had Dwayne Antle, the president of NLAFS, on last week. And he speaks very strongly about the need to put that lens on, put a wildfire lens on your emergency management plans. What do you need to do if you're in a situation like the communities that are being directly affected right now, the nearby communities, and just the municipalities and LSDs and unincorporated areas across the province that are watching that and wondering when they're next. So being prepared from a town perspective, but then also, how do we help our members, which are the municipalities across the province, inform and educate their residents of what's needed as well. There are simple things that we as residents can do. Certainly the fire ban is in place, and there's lots of conversation around that. But mowing the lawn it's recommended to not mow your lawn right now, because if your rotor on your mower hits a rock, that could spark and cause a grass fire.
Right.
So being informed as residents of those kind of risks, they're little things. Perhaps they're inconvenient, or perhaps it just means not mowing your lawn, which for many people is convenient, that we can do just to protect our communities and protect our neighbors. Well,
it's like having an extra level of intention and questioning around everything we're doing. It's like, is there impact? Is there risk around this? Maybe I'll check that. I'll give it a little quick look. I'll give an extra thought to it. We've got Mayor Curtis Delaney on the line, Mayor of Small Point, Adams Cove, Blackhead Broad Cove. Mayor Delaney, thank you for coming back on onto the show, on the program. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Adam. As you can imagine, it's been quite a rough, really over a week now that we've been dealing with this wildfire, and we still got a long way to go yet. Yesterday things looked a little bit better than we had anticipated, so we'll take any little bit of hope that we have. The fire didn't spread as much as it could have, and some preventive measures with some fire breaks and that they've been working on have been somewhat effective. They would like to get more done, but as far as moving at such a pace that trying to get ahead of it has proved difficult. But we have resources on the ground. We're doing what we can, and everyone is working as hard as they can to put an end to this fire. If we could get a little bit of cooperation from the weather, would help matters immensely. But we've been in this same sort of a pattern with high temperatures, strong winds, and no rain in sight.
Yeah, it would be nice if Mother Nature could, do what typically happens in this province and give us some rain and changing the weather patterns. I know we're all looking to Thursday this week to see if some of the precip that might be coming comes with a possible system. What are for folks that you're talking to? What are folks telling you?
Well, that's sort of the hope. There is a chance, at least, that maybe a bit of a damper couple of days towards the end of the week. That should help matters. Everything basically is trying to be contained right now, trying to prevent any further loss of property, and sort of maintain where we are. Try to prevent it from getting out of control any further than it already is, and make another big run as it did a couple of days ago there on Saturday. But it's proven difficult. Suppression efforts, they're doing their best, but they're not really proven that effective just because of the conditions. And it's been a real struggle, a real battle, and obviously with how large this fire has grown right now, it's a concern really for everyone on this peninsula.
What are residents expressing to you, Mayor Delaney?
I mean, there's a lot of anxiety. With the condition of the fire right now and safety concerns, like no one has been able to go in to do an assessment on what's been lost and what's still there. So there's a lot of residents, they're anxious. They're wondering if their homes are still there, and we're working, as soon as it's safe to do so, to go in and to do an assessment, and of course contact people that have lost a home. So we don't even know. We have no idea on numbers or anything at this stage. It's literally an active fire zone, a volatile area. First responders are essentially the only ones that are in there right now, and they're actively fighting this fire. So all I can say to people is, we know you're anxious, but try to have a little bit of patience until we can safely go in, and do that assessment and determine, what damage has actually been done on the ground. But other than that, people are this is dragging into the second week now, and really was no end in sight to the fire, and obviously no date or no timeline as to when people might be able to return to the area. So it's like the anxiety levels are high, stress levels are high. People are frustrated with the situation in general. Like I said, they're worried about their own homes and properties, and the only thing that we can really say for certain, and we're grateful for, through all of this, no one's been hurt. There's been no loss of life. People are safe. They have their families, and we have to be thankful for that.
No, that's as a leaving point for this discussion today, you're right. People are okay, and we're just trying to figure out the next steps and to get folks through to figure out if their homes are okay and what the next steps are for the community. Mayor Delaney, I appreciate you taking time to come on and talk to us about the latest in your community.
Well, thank you. And one final note,
Yes, yep.
I'll just make. As much as this is a difficult time right now, I just want to stress to people that things will improve. As down as things might be right now, there's a day that will come that things will start to slowly improve, and we just have to get to that point and then work from there.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate this.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor Curtis Delaney there. Before I go back to my guests here in studio, we've got, and folks, the lines are open too. Today on The Signal, we're asking, how have you been impacted by this summer's wildfires? 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, The Signal at cbc.ca. We've got Scott Chandler back on the line. Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. We spoke with you last week, and you shared that you'd lost your home to the wildfire. I'm just checking back in to see how yourself and your family are doing today. And I know your wife and 8-year-old son are at the evacuation center, and you've been volunteering. I'm just wondering if you could share a bit with us.
Yeah, so we're on day 7 here of volunteering. As you just said, I did lose my home in the wildfire. We're keeping busy. We got good spirits. We're just trying to help out the community here. And, I just want to thank Mayor Delaney and Council for their amazing leadership. I also want to thank the Premier and the ministers. He was out yesterday again. And it's great seeing our government officials out here. And this isn't lip service. Like, a lot of people are absolutely thankful for the leadership through the municipal and provincial government.
It is. I can't imagine what folks are going through, and for the loss. And again, I'm so sorry for you folks, and in your home, and for everyone who may or are finding out if they do find out that they've lost their homes or cabins or property with all of this. What are the conversations like as you're volunteering, from how folks are doing?
Honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag of nuts, if you will. Like, some people are angry. Some people are obviously sad and heartbroken by losing their properties. May 7th till now, 12 fires in this region. Yeah. Like, this isn't a lightning strike or a quad backfiring or a flick cigarette butt. This is an arson in the community, but let's call it what it is. Someone is out here trying to promote fear and whatnot, and we're resilient, we're strong, and we'll get through this. And like Mayor Delaney said, we're all looking for that silver lining, and we're going to rebuild, and we're going to come out this stronger than before. I wish you could be down here and just see the strength that we're drawing off each other. It truly is a remarkable thing, and it just shows the determination and love and strength that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have.
At the evacuation center, what is it like running through a day there? Like the logistics of the morning, lunch, dinner time. Like what can you just briefly paint some of that picture for us?
I cannot thank enough the volunteers. We have Red Cross, we have Salvation Army, we have the Lions Club, we have Knights of Columbus. Like all these different groups and agencies have been helping out, cooking. We had a huge donation to Mary Brown, so that gave the people volunteering that are cooking and cleaning, that gave them kind of a meal off. And it's little things like that, everyone's just coming together. It really is a remarkable thing. And day-to-day operations, there's so many people behind the scenes here, Danielle Doyle, Robin Dwyer, Sue Rose, there's so many people here that are just running around and getting things, and little things like people. I need a fan. It's hot in my little room here. We go get it and get a donation of 10 fans. It's just overwhelming, the amount of support that we're getting from the community and through over the province.
And Scott, and if you can't go into this, I completely understand. But for the young folks there, how are things being kind of explained to some of the kids who are there?
I think the kids are just remaining kids. They're aware of the situation. I told my son that we lost our property. He's looking at it through an eyes of an 8-year-old. Oh, my stuffies are gone. Oh, my favorite book. Oh, my Nintendo. Little things like that. And I was like, listen, buddy, don't worry. We'll get you another one, and we'll get through this. But it's so heartbreaking as a parent seeing your child upset over what is so precious to them. But in the same breath, at least for me and my wife with our son, we were open and transparent. Right as soon as we knew, we pulled them aside and had that conversation with them. We didn't get deep into it, but the house is gone, bud. Oh, okay, and we're going to rebuild. Oh, okay, and we just go from there, right?
Yeah, we lost ours when I was a kid. So the Nintendo, and it was like the original Nintendo, given the time period. But yes, I remember being a kid. It was Nintendo, my comic books, and all that stuff, and just trying to wrap my head around the loss as the folks explained it. So that I do remember from growing up. Scott, thanks for coming back on. I appreciate you just talking about your situation and expressing, explaining to folks what's happening and describing all of the people who are coming together to help out on this.
And honestly, we're not out of the woodwork yet. We're weeks away. We're months away. After this is all done, we need mental health on the ground out there. There's people that are scared to go back to their homes because they're afraid that the next fire could be them. So I have to thank Premier Hogan and the ministers coming out, and they said for days now, we got you, we got your back. Tell us what you need. It's coming. That's leadership. I'm so blessed that we have these people in these roles. I really am. And again, this isn't lip service. They're telling us what we need, and that's so reassuring right now that when your government says, we got you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak as well. These stories need to be out there.
I'll be in touch, Scott, to stay on this. And thanks again for coming back on the program.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And you take care, okay?
You too. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Scott Chandler there. Let me go back to Colin Corcoran and Rob Nolan here with me in studio. We heard from Mayor Delaney. We just heard from Scott Chandler, who him and his family lost their home. Scott's volunteering. Any thoughts on what you've heard?
Well, first off, big thank you to Mayor Delaney and to Scott for calling in. I mean, it's hard to listen to these stories on the ground and not get emotional.
Yeah.
You know, Adam, I also had a house fire when I was a kid, and it's something that really sticks with you. And to hear Scott talk about having those conversations with his children, and it's stuff that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
We're also hearing very strongly about how positive the coordinated approach is. So Scott and Mayor Delaney both mentioned multiple orders of government, the community sector engaged. They both mentioned the importance of volunteers on the ground, and just the community spirit that I think we all are proud of in Newfoundland and Labrador really shows in these kind of moments of crises. And as Scott noted and the Premier noted last night, even when the fires end, we're far from being out of the woods with this, and it's going to be months. And to your point, for those who lost homes, it could be more than a year before they're safely and stably back in a home. So it is going to take a community effort, and it's going to take all of us across multiple orders of government. And that's where our organizations come into play, but that's why these conversations are important as well, for coordination efforts and just so that everyone knows your collective part in these emergencies.
Well, and being as aware as possible on what the road ahead it could be, it is in a way, is helpful, because then planning can take place, as opposed to if you don't know, like that, meaning like talk to other jurisdictions, understand what's happened in other places. Like we said with the mayor of Jasper from last week, hearing about what they've done, what they've learned, and then implementing that here, because other communities have been through it and more will be. And it's just about kind of getting those resources and understandings. Colin, any thoughts?
Too many thoughts at this point, and very similar. You listen to Mayor Delaney, you listen to Scott, and you can't help but feel in the moment a little bit helpless. Like, how can we do it? But then thankfully, so many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians had that moment, because we are connected in that special way. And they said, we're going to raise our hand. Here we have a mayor of a small town just signed up last year really to council role. And if you had to ask him, a year ago that this is what he'd be doing this summer, it would be out of the realm of possibility. But there he is. Mm-hmm. His house is in the middle of that as well. He's unsure, I'm sure, trying to check in as well. You have Scott as well there. He knows his home's gone, but he is volunteering. And they're both keeping the positive outlook and looking for those silver linings. I'm trying to reconcile for myself as thinking about after. Yeah. And Scott made an incredible point about this. I was actually in Jasper a couple of weeks ago. Right. And we drove through and saw the devastation firsthand. And it is going to take time to recover. They were still using modular buildings. The spot where the fire had gone through Jasper, there was still construction just even starting at that point in time. And similar to Jasper, Jasper is a tourism economic hub. Newfoundland and Labrador is a tourism economic hub. And I'm thinking about all the things that we need to now consider in this moment before they come as a surprise to us, and reaching out to other jurisdictions and understanding how other people have done it. Because they may feel in Ontario or Alberta the crunch under their feet, and they're like, oh, okay, it's dry. But we haven't felt that crunch until now, and now we're feeling that crunch. So now it's time to learn and time to rebuild.
Yeah, man, I was in my backyard the weekend, and I just no shoes on, and I was like, I haven't felt this before in this province, right? Like that crunch, the hay feeling beneath my feet, and on what was. I'll be honest, mainly moss, but there was some grass around too, or there used to be, I should say. We've got Fraser Fry, Senior Operations Officer for NL Health Services, Eastern Rural Zone, on the line. Fraser Fry, thank you for coming on the program.
Yes, good day, Adam. How are you?
Doing okay. When going through this, right? It's a bit of need to know information. So for you folks with NL Health Services, you've got us an update on what services are available during the wildfire in the state of emergency area, and pop-up clinics being established, etc. Can you give us a bit of an explanation on what's available for folks, please?
Sure. And just listening to some of your conversation, do want to acknowledge that this is a very difficult situation for the people involved and impacted by these fires. So from a NL Health Services perspective, we're here now, and it's priority for us to offer the right supports. right now, I do want to reiterate that our emergency departments are fully operational. And if anyone is experiencing a medical emergency, to call 911. While we have facilities in the state of emergency area, they are not impacted by evacuations. So our emergency services are fully available. We do have an evacuation center set up here at Carbonear. It's being operated by the Red Cross. So at that site, we do have mental health and addiction supports. We have community support program supports, and we also have primary health care services available. In addition, we have mobile mental health and addiction supports that's available for first responders. So if requests do come in for first responder support, we would go to the area, and that's being established today. Also in the area too as well, I guess to support the larger community, we are offering a pop-up primary health care clinic at our Carbonear Community Health Services building here in Carbonear. It's walk-in, but you can call too as well to make an appointment. And the number to call is 709-945-6550.
All right, so you've got the pop-up clinic, and you were mentioning about mental health supports, other types of supports, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, but for other folks who may be adjacent to areas or just in general, I mean, this is an awfully heavy, hard time right now, and so I'm thinking two things: overall, broad mental health supports for people in Newfoundland and Labrador and other communities, perhaps not directly impacted, and also like what should folks be aware of air quality-wise and what's available.
So we do receive air quality reports from our public health department. Any advertisements on air quality changes or whatnot, that would be included on our NL Health Services website, and as well at gov.nl.ca/alerts. You would find information around air quality listed there too as well.
Excellent. And then, and for other folks, I mean, is it? We've had talks about LifeWise and the Warm Line, right, for peer-to-peer support, which is a provincial number of folks can call, which is there. There's also one for first responders. Is there anything else for folks on the mental health side of things that to kind of put out there?
Sure. Within our community supports, we do have virtual doorway clinics. And that's rapid access to mental health and addiction services. So the number to contact for that virtual doorway clinic is 709-945-6513. Excellent.
Is there, Fraser, is there anything else to add on the health side of things from your point of view before I let you go?
No, I just want to reiterate that our emergency departments are open, and if you are experiencing a medical emergency, to call 911. Certainly do want to send out a huge shout out to our staff who are stepping up here now to deliver services when needed, and also to first responders that are, managing these wildfires frontline. So I just wanted to pass along a thanks to those groups.
Fraser Fry, thank you so much for that information. It is very helpful. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
You too. Fraser Fry, their Senior Operations Officer for NL Health Services, Eastern Rural Zone. First responders, Warm Line, 1-709-237-4180. 709-237-4180. The regular Warm Line that's been set up for a while now, 1-855-753-2560. All Googleable, folks, but just to let you know that for peer-to-peer support, those conversations are out there and available if needed. I'm Adam Walsh. This is The Signal. Today on the show, we are talking about wildfires, wildfire impacts, and we're talking about looking ahead at what needs to be done for recovery And part of that conversation is about the NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund. And for you, and we'll give you some more details now on that in a second. If you're listening and you want to join this discussion, the lines are open. We're asking, how have you been impacted by this summer's wildfires? So if you've got thoughts for us, and that can be in areas directly impacted, or it can be in other areas. If you have thoughts, feel free to give us a call, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206, the signal at cbc.ca. My two guests here in studio, Colin Corcoran, CEO, Community Sector Council, NL, and Rob Nolan, CEO, Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. When we look ahead around like the rebuilding and I'll just say recovery around what is happening right now, part of the fund talks about restoring vital infrastructure so communities can thrive again. Now, we don't really know what that is yet, though, do we? Right? Because we have to wait. We literally have to wait for like the literal smoke to clear to get in and take a look. Because on the show last week, we talked about Fort McMurray 9 years ago. Their fire, wells were contaminated. Mm-hmm. Some bridges were buckled and had to be like. There was a lot of stuff that even some homes afterwards that weren't directly impacted had plumbing. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to be. And I'm not saying this to scare anyone, but I'm just saying like there's a lot that has to be looked at post wildfire for such a fund then to hopefully kick in for helping, right?
Yeah, Adam, you're right that we don't know yet, and we don't want to speculate too much. But we do know what does happen and what kinds of infrastructure are lost. You mentioned wells being contaminated. So the section of Holyrood that was affected and that was evacuated, those wells ran dry because of the amount of water that was needed for firefighting. And once those wells run dry, there's a high risk of contamination. So once those wells start getting water for the town water supply again, we're going to have to make sure that those wells aren't contaminated. That's a very obvious one that is a big one there. So their town wells in that section of Holyrood actually ran dry because of the amount of water that was needed, which is quite scary when you think about it. You mentioned bridges, trail systems, really any structure that is municipal owned or otherwise could be affected in this. And you mentioned homes that burn down. Most homes are connected in one way or another to municipal infrastructure. They might not be on town water supply, they might not be on sewer, but they're connected in one way or another. So when we lose homes in towns, it's likely that municipal infrastructure needs to be recovered in addition to those personal homes.
Yeah, it's the context around all of this. Once you know, like from hearing from others and realizing everything that has to be inspected and looked at and understood, just to be able to kind of start to, that's as stuff moves forward, but there's unknowns to things because of the nature of what is going on. We've got Eugene Howell on the line, resident of Northern Bay. Hi, Eugene.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing okay. Give us your update. I know you received the evacuation alert Saturday, and last I understood you're headed towards Carbonear with your mother. Can you just tell us your current situation?
I went to Old in the first few nights, so we went down the bay, and of course I could come up as far as Job's Cove and video the fire, and today we to 3 meters the road is blocked coming up, and we came all the way up and came into Heart's Content across the Heart's Content parents, and we're halfway up before you get Victoria. See down in the bay, she's the fire already.
Eugene, we're going to try this phone line again. You're kind of breaking up there, so I'm going to look back at John Pike, and we're going to call you back just to see if we can get a better line. And if we can't, Arlette Lazarenko will take a couple notes, and I can paraphrase them for folks so they understand your situation. We'll call back shortly. All right, Eugene Howell there. We'll see if we can get a better phone line. But another thing with Newfoundland and Labrador, connectivity.
I was just going to jump in and say the same thing. That's a really clear and current example of why we need mobile connectivity. We need cell connectivity. We at MNL have been saying that It's not a luxury, it's a lifeline. And we're hearing that throughout these wildfires. Whenever there's a crisis, especially when a community is evacuated, you need connection. And we all know that a lot of us don't have landlines anymore. So even when we're in our home, we need our cell to be working and be connected. But certainly when we're on the road, trying to find safety, you need connection. And even as close as Conception Bay North, people are having cell connectivity issues. And that's something to work on. That's both a proactive and a reactive thing that we need to be working on. After these kind of crises, we really need to buckle down and figure out a solution.
That's where my head goes with a lot of this is we know that there's going to be infrastructure destroyed. We know that there's going to be, particularly municipal infrastructure, is going to be affected. And one of the reasons behind a recovery fund was trying to anticipate that we don't know yet. We know that we don't know things. Yeah. And so we don't know if a local community center has been lost. We don't know if a critical program that contributes to the health and social well-being of young people is going to be adversely affected because of the wildfires. And so as we're thinking through the fund, as we're planning forward, thinking about all these other areas that don't come to us in the moment, but are going to be so critically important thereafterwards. And then the one key part of the fund is then focusing on the volunteer fire departments and ensuring that as recovery measures are put in place, as we start talking about what capital needs to look like, how we begin to do that, giving these communities, giving these community organizations, giving these volunteers a financial tool in their toolkit so that they can leverage when they need it immediately, because it is going to take a while to recover, and hopefully funds will flow. But then again, there's immediate needs right afterwards, and then the rebuilding really needs to begin.
Eugene Howell is back on the line. Let's try this again with the phone line. Hi, Eugene.
Good afternoon.
Oh, there we go. We got it. I think.
Yeah, I'm outside the evacuation center, so maybe it's better.
Oh, yeah, no, you're sounding loud and clear. So tell us a bit more now, or recap. Let's start at the beginning and tell us about once you received the evacuation alert, where you went, and then we'll get to where you are now.
Yeah, so the day of the evacuation, I was down in Northern Bay Sands having to swim in the river, and the alarm went off. I thought it was the alert. You get the alert first, but I didn't know it. Then I looked and said evacuate immediately. Burn Point, Northern Bay, Gull Island. And it was quite a shock. We didn't get no notice for alert. We got an evacuation immediately. So then we packed up. We were already prepared. And then I went to Old Pelican. A couple of my brothers went up the bay. And I've been down in Old Pelican the last 2 days. And you could go up as far as Job's Cove at night, and Job's Cove Hill is quite high. And you could look at the fire in Western Bay. And, I got a lot of historical footage, I guess, from that vantage point, because it's not easy to get in there and look at it. And I've been down there the last 2 days from Northern Bay. And today I left and came up to the evacuation center up here in Carbonear. So that's where I am now. And when I came from Old Pelican, I went up to the communities till I get to Heart's Content. And then you come across to Heart's Content Barrens. When I got halfway across, of course, you can look down towards Kingston, Western Bay, and she's quite roaring again. And the wind here is in Carbonear is very strong.
And I'm just looking at my notes. Is your mother with you as well?
Yeah, my mother's here. She's 96. She's just in there getting something to eat. But for people like her, that age group is. Conception Bay North has attracted a lot of people like me who came back. I was in Vancouver 26 years. There's a lot of retirees, a lot of older people, wanted to come back to the quietness of where they grew up in the Bay. So there's a lot of people with medical things and conditions, and it's very stressful.
Yeah. How's your mom doing?
Yeah, she's quite resilient. That generation dealt with a lot of stuff in their lives. So I think that generation is a lot more prepared for life than we are today. So they use those survival skills. And you got to calm people like that down. You can't show any of your own fears and stuff in front of older, vulnerable people.
And Eugene, so where will you folks be spending tonight and the next couple of nights?
I got nephews here in Carbonear, like my mother, my sister, and Upper Island Cove. And, just my brother, two brothers are here, so get together, just to share. But the evacuation center here today is quite busy, it's quite organized, it's good. I think they're going to have a news conference here in a little while, I think.
Yeah, I believe there's I'm just looking at my notes. There's let me see, media advisory, Premier Hogan, available to media. There's a 2:15 today, Newfoundland time, folks, half an hour earlier, most of Labrador, that the Premier is going to give a media availability. Eugene?
No, I did talk to the individuals that I know have lost their homes there.
Mm-hmm.
I met them in the evacuation center because, a lot of them have been following my post. I sell my photography. That's how I started with the website, but it became more like a community bulletin board. So, I've kind of connected everyone and just recorded for historical purposes.
Right. Eugene, thank you for giving us an update on yourself, on your mom, and just the situation. I appreciate you taking time to come on the show today.
Thank you for educating, getting the message out and trying to encourage people. People want that information. It's good what you're doing.
All right. Be well, Eugene.
Okay. Thank you.
And folks, I did mention that 2:15 Newfoundland time media availability from the provincial government. I will be back live with you for that on CBC Radio 1. We will carry that media availability and we will continue on for the next hour. So keep your radios on this afternoon. We will have that as it happens this afternoon after this show. This is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We're getting down there as far as the show time goes. There's only about 7-8 minutes left here today. So I will say, folks, with the wildfires and the coverage we are doing, even when we're not on the air, if there's anything you want us to know, if you think there's stuff we're not getting to, or there's stuff you want to find out, or messages you want to send us for this show, for me, The Signal at cbc.ca. Give us a message. Send us a note. Call the Signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. I'll go back here with my guests in studio, Colin Corcoran and Rob Nolan. Colin from Community Sector Council, Rob from Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. We were just listening to Eugene there, and we've been talking about the NL Forest Fires Recovery Fund here today. What else should we let folks know about it? I mean, it's wildfirenl.ca is the website. It's covering everything from restoring vital infrastructure so communities can thrive again, strengthening firefighting capacity to protect future communities, right? And supporting local organizations doing critical recovery work. Anything to add around some of this work or what's happening with it?
I'll just quickly pull on the thread that Colin started around firefighting capacity. So when we hear of ground crews at these wildfires, that typically means crews from the Department of Forestry. So those are forest firefighters. But that doesn't mean that the volunteer municipal fire departments are not engaged in this. If they have training in forest firefighting, then they may be on the ground. But those volunteer firefighters are quite dedicated and committed to their work. So even if they're not able to be on the ground in that fire, they're doing work in the town, preventative, proactive work. They are trucking water out to the firefighters that are fighting the forest fires. They are supporting members of the community in evacuation efforts. In Holyrood and other communities, volunteer firefighters have been going door to door to evacuate people. And that goes back also to the conversation around the warm lines. So warm lines and psychological support, mental health support are incredibly important right now while we're in it. But again, that's another thing that's going to be incredibly important as we recover from this.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on that thread again and weave a few things more together.
Please,
Listen, Eugene, that time, the pictures that we see on socials, these are experiences that people have seen and felt and experienced in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we shouldn't forget that. And also the ones who are experiencing this in real life are our volunteers and our community groups and organizations that are on the ground. I made a list of about a dozen organizations so far that we've already talked about on the show, covering everything from emergency response to recovery to firefighting to mental health and support. And when we think forward and when we prepare for maybe it's a wildfire, maybe it's another crisis somewhere along the way. We also need to think about what is the capacity of municipalities, a lot of them volunteer counselors, what is the capacity of community sector organizations? What are we going to do to support the community sector who have also jumped right on in, the volunteers that we have on the ground? How do we ensure that if we're ever faced with something like this again, that we're ready? We know Newfoundlanders and Labradorians will answer the call. We know that they will, and they have. How do we make sure that we're supporting them while we do so?
And as we live in this time of increasing extreme weather, when it's hot and dry, it's too hot, too dry, and when it's wet, it's too wet, right? These extremes with climate change. What is the conversation going to be going forward for looking at how to tool up in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, a lot of volunteer fire departments, to have them geared up, ready to go and ready to answer? Because they're the ones, like you said, Rob, they protect the homes, the people, and the homes and the property. And the forestry folks are in the woods, in the forest, fighting the fires. Like, what is the conversation going to be now that we know what, we seeing now here what is happening and across the country to be prepared? Like, how big is that conversation going to be when we talk about funding and the municipal level and the provincial level, and whether or not there's federal funding to come down to try to be as ready as possible? It seems gigantic.
Yeah, you're right. It's a conversation that has to be at the systemic level. Around volunteer firefighters, we've all traveled around the province and driven over a bridge, and there's been volunteer firefighters holding out a boot for donations to the fire department, right? And those donations that are going into that boot are likely going into equipment that is going to save homes in that community. And should we really be relying on boot donations for this kind of increasing emergency and crisis? Of course we shouldn't. So we need to really be looking at the systemic level. How do we support the fire departments that protect our communities? And so many of them are volunteers. So we also need to make sure that they have the proper training to do this work, and that they have the proper equipment to protect themselves and go out there. Because if you're volunteering as a firefighter, you're probably going to run into that fire regardless. And we hear that all the time. We talk about that at M&L. There is defensive firefighting training, which means you stand outside the structure and spray water at it. And there's offensive, which is you go in. And it requires different training and different equipment. And community firefighters are willing to go above and beyond and even surpass what their equipment allows or what their training allows. We need to better capacitate them to do the job that they need to do on the ground.
And I don't know if either of you guys know this, but I'm just curious about it too. When you sign up to be a community, a volunteer firefighter, right? So, so structure fires, accidents on the highway, car accidents, these types of things. And then, of course, you might think, well, if there's a wildfire. But we're in a case of one that's happening, like the Kingston fire, weeks plural. And you get folks, so volunteer firefighters typically have other jobs. Is there a compensation thing, and is there anything there at this point in time for these folks? Because, I can ask this I can send a note to the provincial government to try to find out, because I am curious about it. But is that a conversation that needs to be looked at as well when you have folks who are just giving it all to try to save their communities as volunteers?
So this is a conversation in volunteerism constantly, and if you were to look across, and all volunteers are absolutely important. You look at volunteer firefighters, search and rescue, they are increasingly taking on more of a professionalized role. Yeah. They are required, not just asked to, they're required to do additional training. They're required to take on certain responsibilities. They're required to respond to emergencies. This is a conversation we will need to have. When is it volunteering, and when does it become a necessary, critical service in the community that we need to ensure that is capacitated, that is compensated, that is done the way that we need to do? It's a broader conversation of volunteerism that I'm very happy to have over the next coming months, but we do need to have a conversation about it, because volunteers increasingly are taking on more. They're taking on more risk, personal risk, and we need to rectify that. We need to close the gap between what's expected and what's fair against somebody's own personal safety.
Rob, Nolan, 20 seconds, final thought to you.
Just my thoughts are with all the community members, residents, counselors, mayors, volunteers, firefighters, everyone out there that's either being affected or trying to help. And a huge shout out to everyone that's trying to help right now.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for this. The website one more time, Colin, before we're out of time.
www.wildfirenl.ca, and that's our digital boot.
All right, there you go. Folks, thanks for this conversation. The Signal at cbc.ca if you want stuff for us. Tomorrow we are staying with wildfire updates as needed. And yes, Tim Walsh will be by. It is gardening day for Tuesday, but I'm fairly certain most of our conversation will be about summer and drought conditions. That's tomorrow on The Signal. Also, we will be live on CBC Radio 1 for this afternoon's government briefing. So keep your radios on, folks. Cheers.